like to thank Celia and the Society for Professional Journalists for this great honor, and to the other inductees, Richard and Denise. It's a privilege to be in your company tonight. Let me offer a little bit more gratitude. First, my best friends, wife Susan and daughter Katie, who put up with my eccentricities and support me with unconditional love. I have a wonderful expanded family, cousins, relatives, nephews, in-laws, and some of them are here too. So thank you for being here. And I also would be remiss in not saying to the wonderful staff of Voice of America, I'm so sorry for what you've had to endure in recent months, and please know how much I respect you and how much I've been buoyed by your resilience and support. Thank you. I know so I'm very touched, Chuck, that you mentioned my mom and dad. As you mentioned, Morton Sheppy both died last year, and I was deeply inspired by their fierce commitment to public service. Of all their incredible accomplishments, one of the most relevant is that they instilled in me a lifelong love for journalism and for journalists. I married one, actually. Some of my earliest memories involve poring over the Washington Post sports page at the age of 7 at breakfast and riding with my dad to the Capitol Hilton on Saturday nights to pick up the early edition of the Sunday paper. My parents' closest friends were all reporters, and my dad, as Chuck said, he was a diplomat, played a very important journalistic function that this crowd should well appreciate. He was a very good source. I had a wonderful run at the Post. I'm so happy that some of my friends from the Post are here. Bobby, Tom, Richard. I started there as a summer intern in 1985, and I kind of feel old saying this, but I truly believe I came of age during a golden age of the Post. Not that we were perfect, far from it, but the Post was an amazing incubator of talent and a fun place to work, and the Graham family, a principled owner, always prioritizing the public interest in stewarding the newspaper. I'm so proud to call Don Graham a friend, and I thank him for all he's done for the Post and for Washington. Under the Graham-owned Washington Post, local politics was a great beat, and it was my training ground, because in those days, at least, you could not go to the White House without a stop in Prince George's County or Annapolis or DC City Hall. I did all three. And Denise, I would be remiss if I did not mention that one of my earliest jobs at the Post is covering the DC Council, where I keenly remember your very formidable mother, Wilhelmina Rolark, who brooked no nonsense from young reporters or anybody. I want to focus my remarks tonight on the Voice of America, because even though I've been in this post for only a year, and it seems much longer, I regard my tenure at VOA as among the most meaningful and consequential work I've ever done. Of course, sadly, my role in recent months has, for the most part, not involved journalism, but rather I found myself being forced to make the case in the media, in Congress, and in the courts on behalf of a storied news organization which is being unfairly and unwisely targeted for elimination by the current administration. As most of you are undoubtedly aware, I and most of my colleagues have been on administrative leave since March, and we are seeking court support to restore VOA to the role Congress intended, a consistent and reliable source of objective news for our global audiences, many of whom live in closed societies and have no access to any other reliable news. The words of the Voice of America Charter hang in my office at the Cohen Building, and until March 14th, I looked at it most days I was in the office to remind myself of our solemn obligation, especially, and I quote, to represent America, not any single segment of American society, and to therefore present a balanced and comprehensive projection of significant American thought and institutions. That's 50 years old. That still seems very good to me. VOA's mission is deeply inspiring. Until we were shut down on March 14th, we had one of the largest global audiences of any news organization in the world. Roughly 360 million people would come to Voice of America every week from Myanmar, Tibet, Mali, Venezuela, Belarus, Nigeria, countless places largely ignored by the rest of the news media. Our work was disseminated in 49 different languages and with an attention to fairness and accuracy that I found unique in the news business. The stories we told to our audience, the stories we told were ones that our audiences could not find elsewhere, especially for those living in dictatorial regimes like China or Iran, where access to the news is strictly controlled by the state. We know that people living in tyranny thirst for the truth about their societies and what is happening beyond their borders. And our coverage of the presidential election in Iran last year was instructive. My colleagues collected and vetted videos and information from Iranians of all walks of life from across the country. Ordinary citizens told VOA they boycotted the vote, citing disillusionment, repression, economic collapse, and the regime's widespread corruption. Video footage from inside Iran that showed empty polling stations, contradicting the regime's claims of significant participation, and capturing the regime's alienation, especially from the youngest generations. In Venezuela, the Maduro regime has shut down 400 media outlets in 20 years, and VOA has been an oasis of independent reporting about the corruption and economic calamity inside the country. During the 2024 elections, VOA was the first independent international media to accompany the opposition leader, Maria Corina Machado, on her national tour. And we showed the siege of Machado by the pro-Maduro groups. And our team in Venezuela had access to the electoral records that proved the victory of the opposition leader, Edmundo Gonzalez, and published original reports about this evidence. The newsrooms of Voice of America are unlike any newsroom I have ever been in and I'm aware of. They are composed of journalists who come from authoritarian countries where they're unable to practice a profession. And they come to America to work for Voice of America so they can report the stories that they are not allowed to report at home. And as an example, our China coverage has been directed by an outstanding journalist who listened to VOA as a young student in Chengdu during the Tiananmen Square protests in 1989. She and the other students learned the truth of what was happening from VOA radio reports in Shenzhen. You might just say and there are countless others like you who have found their calling at Voice of America. They inspire me deeply, as do the 3 VOA journalists who are still in prison in Vietnam, Myanmar, and Azerbaijan, simply for doing their jobs. I would like to say their names because they should not be forgotten, whatever happens to VOA. Situ Myint, Pham Chi Dong, Ovia Galira. The U.S. government should be doing everything possible to secure their release and the release of our imprisoned colleagues from Radio Free Europe and Radio Free Asia. It's because of these amazing people that I have faith in the future of Voice of America. I simply cannot believe that the administration and Congress would give up what has been one of the greatest and most cost-effective tools for influencing and reaching the peoples of the world. I'm quite sure that we can make reforms to address the concerns of lawmakers and others about VOA, but we cannot be wholly dismantling a fine agency that has well served the national interest for 83 years. Gao Yu, now 81, is a courageous, independent Chinese journalist who has been imprisoned 3 times by the regime in Beijing for exposing its brutalities. She has been relying on VOA for more than 4 decades, and this is really incredible. This is one of the most moving things of the last few months. She found a way a couple months ago to break through the information blockade around Beijing, to share her thoughts about VOA in an affidavit, an amicus brief that was filed to support our lawsuit. She certainly understands the value of VOA. This is what she said, and I quote, "Generations of Chinese citizens have risked their lives to listen to VOA just to access truthful information," Gao Yu explained in her declaration. "Given the Chinese government's extraordinary censorship and propaganda efforts," she said, "shutting down VOA, a highly influential U.S. government media outlet that the CCP, the Chinese Communist Party regime, fears, is, in her view," and I quote, "akin to cutting off one of America's own arms or slitting its own throat. It is ceding the information battlefield to the authoritarian regime, causing pain for the Chinese people and joy for the CCP." It's amazing. If Gao Yu can manage to make her views on VOA known in the face of the world's most intense censorship regime, I have every confidence to believe that we can change the course of this story. I am the 31st director of the Voice of America. It's an incredible seat. John Chancellor had this seat, John Houseman. I am trying to do everything I can to make sure the last, and I so appreciate this honor bestowed on me by SBJ as I interpret this as a measure of support for that aspiration. Thank you all.